Only shameful greed guided the decision.
Hello everybody, welcome here at the channel. This week we have a very special guest from the 6th century. It is Procopius, the main biographer at the court of Emperor Justinian. At the time the western part of the Roman Empire had already fallen apart, but the eastern part, the Byzantine Empire, was still going strong. Procopius will share some abridged parts of his book called The Secret History. It will give you an idea on what kind of emperor his boss Justinian was. So, let me give Procopius the floor.
Thank you, Don Quixote, thank you. I am glad that I can talk about what really happened at Justinian's court in the 6th century. It's not as glorious as the formal documents I had to write suggest. Today, based on my secret history, I'll share more on my late boss Justinian, and in a few weeks, I will come back to do the same to share more on his wife Theodora. Okay, let's start. When Justinian became emperor of the Eastern Roman Empire in 527 AD, he was 44, and I must have been about 30 years old. Justinian immediately wanted to leave his mark. He did upset everybody. He abolished the existing institutions, and in the few instances that he couldn't get rid of them, he changed their name so that it incorporated his name. He did the same with laws and the army, and not for the reason that he loved justice or wanted to do just to the people. He just had an insatiable desire for status and money, and did not see it as an issue if he had to rob, plunder, or murder for it. To ensure that he would not be attacked from abroad, he gave large sums of money to his enemies. As a result, the barbarians loved to define themselves as enemies and would attack and plunder Romans at the border, so that the issue would be resolved by an emperor rewarding them by paying them even more to stop the plundering. He had his methods in how he secured that he had enough money. For instance, he declared some Christian beliefs and communities to be illegal. He did this especially with ones that were rich. And yes, they were rich. And then, because he just made them illegal, he had his troops go in and confiscated their property and their money. This way he acquired more gold, silver, jewels, and money than anybody else within the empire. Most of the people affected by this grand theft plot were left in absolute poverty, and if they objected, no problem, he would put out an order to kill them. Some of these Christian communities, for instance the Montanists, ended up locking themselves in their churches and setting their church on fire. They perished in the flames. When Justinian ran out of Christian communities to steal from, he moved on to do the same to other minorities within society. This all triggered loads of people to leave the empire. They emigrated to the lands of the barbarians and to nations most remote from Rome, as if their own country had been occupied by an enemy. Justinian's methods described before led to about everybody being robbed of their possessions, that is, everybody, except the members of the Senate. I will now describe how Justinian and his wife succeeded to take all the property of the members of the Senate as well. A good example would be to explain what happened to Zeno. Zeno was the grandson of a previous emperor. Justinian promoted him to become the governor of Egypt. When Zeno was about to embark for the boat trip from Constantinople to Egypt bringing all his possessions with him, Justinian organized that secretly all his possessions were confiscated, his ship set on fire and Zeno murdered. For Justinian, it was just an efficient way to get hold of someone's possessions. Similar things happened to Tatian, of Demosthenes, and to Hilara, persons who at that time held the first rank in the Roman Senate. Justinian obtained other persons' fortunes by stealing or confiscating their property at moments when their possessions were transported. In this way, or by using a high tax scheme, Justinian robbed most of the members of the Senate. And in these actions where threatening Cruxial's support in the Senate, he lent them money to buy back their property in exchange for their support. So these people, oppressed by the tax gatherers, and tormented by the never-ceasing interest to be paid upon their debts, became weary of their lives. For all what I have stated, I, and many of my level in government, never believed that Justinian and Theodora were really two human beings. They were evil demons, and what the poets call scourges of mankind. And if that was not sufficient, these terrible beings were supported by the supernatural in their schemes to destroy the whole human race. Much of the ruin was also caused by earthquakes, pestilences, and inundations of rivers. Thus it was not just human power, but something greater, that enabled them to be as evil as they were. I should also tell you that the story goes that Justinian's mother told that Justinian was not the son of her husband, or of any other human being, but that she had slept with a demon. And, additionally, there are stories of Justinian walking around without a head, or with his head temporarily deformed in a shapeless mesh. And with regard to Theodora, it was said that she shared that when she came to Constantinople she wanted to sleep with the chief of all demons and marry him. In this way she would get all the wealth of the world at her disposal. Although Justinian's character was such as I have already explained, he seemed, if you just met him, to be a friendly, accessible man. No one was ever denied an audience, and he never was angry even with those who did not behave or speak properly in his presence. At the same time, he never felt ashamed of any of the murders he committed. He never displayed any anger or pettishness against those who offended him, but preserved a mild countenance and an unruffled brow, and with a gentle voice would order tens of thousands of innocent men to be put to death, cities to be taken by storm, and property to be confiscated. One would almost get the idea that he had the character of a sheep, but if anyone was asking him for mercy, he would straightway become savage, show his teeth, and vent his rage upon his subjects. While he was emperor of the Romans, neither faith in God nor religion was secure. No law could be trusted to stay in force, and no contract was binding. When he entrusted any business to his officials, and if they did what he expected of them, that is to put to death those who fell into their hands and brought back great wealth, they were looked upon as faithful servants. In that case, they were spoken of as men who had accurately carried out his instructions. However, if they came back after having shown mercy, he took a dislike to them and was their enemy for life, and never again would employ them. For this reason many men were anxious to prove to him that they were villains, although it wasn't really their nature. He would often make men repeat promises, and confirm his promise by an oath or by writing, and then purposely forget all about it. He thought that doing this did him credit. Everything he did was for no other purpose than to make the sufferings of his subjects every day more grievous. He was especially quick in devising crimes, and swift to carry them out. With regard to the ruling of the empire, everything was done at the wrong time, and nothing that was established was allowed to continue. Justinian neither possessed in himself the appearance of imperial dignity, nor demanded that it should be respected by others. He imitated the barbarians in language, appearance, and ideas. When he had to issue an imperial decree, he did not entrust it to the officials to communicate it in the usual way, but did always choose to deliver it himself. This, although he expressed himself in his own language, like a foreigner. This happened as well to verdicts and imperial decisions. In many cases he made sure to put themselves to paper, not making use of the trained officials to execute these tasks. He took everything upon himself, with all the arrogance of the world, to manage cases that were to be decided. In most cases he immediately pronounced his verdict after listening only to one of the litigants. These verdicts were not in accordance with any law or principle of justice. Only shameful greed guided the decision, for the emperor was not ashamed to take bribes. His extreme greed for wealth had deprived him of all feelings of shame. The Senate was under Justinian an empty shell, without the power of giving its vote or of keeping up its dignity. It was assembled merely for form's sake and in order to keep up an ancient custom, and it were the emperor and his consort that decided what should be discussed and what the outcome should be. There was no longer any security in contracts, in law, in oaths, in written documents, in any penalty agreed upon, or in any other security, unless money had been previously given to the emperor. Nor was even this method certain, for Justinian would accept bribes from both parties, and, after having drained the pockets of both of those who had put confidence in him, he was not ashamed to cheat one or the other. For him there was nothing disgraceful in playing a double part, provided only that it turned out profitable for him. Such a man was Justinian. So, this is what I wanted to share about my boss. You understand that I did not publish these secret histories. It would have cost my life. It was secret for many centuries and surfaced again in the Vatican libraries at the end of the Middle Ages. Let me leave you in the good hands of Don Quixote. I will continue to prepare a session of Justinian's evil wife, Theodora. See you soon.
Wow. That makes me seek for the right words. Procopius, thank you for sharing this. It would be great to have such honest reflections on many leaders, that is from the past, but also from the present. You make it very clear that in some instances people in power can turn into evil beings. This certainly happened to your boss. Anyway, this was the session for this week. I suppose we have another session like this in a few weeks' time, that is on Theodora. Cheers and see you next time.